Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez had been stationed on the research vessel Horizon for 3 months when the impossible happened. The twin Zephyrian ambassadors Lyra and Nova had arrived for diplomatic talks, but a malfunction in the ship's systems led to the most embarrassing and life-changing encounter of her life. Amy stepped out of the sonic shower in her quarters completely unaware that the door lock had failed. The steam cleared just as 2 tall, blue-skinned figures entered her room. Their silver hair caught the light as they froze in the doorway. Amy grabbed a towel, but it was too late. The twins stared at her with wide violet eyes. Their mouths fell open in what Amy thought was shock or disgust. She felt her face burn red as she clutched the small towel. But then something unexpected happened. Lyra whispered something in her native tongue to Nova, who nodded slowly. They both dropped to one knee and bowed their heads. Amy stood there dripping and confused, as the most powerful beings she had ever met knelt before her naked human form captain. Lisa Morgan rushed in moments later, having been alerted by the security breach. She found the scene and nearly dropped her tablet. The Zephyrian twins were still kneeling while Amy stood, wrapped in her towel, looking mortified. What Amy did not know was that in Zephyrian culture, the human form represented the ultimate expression of natural beauty. Their people had evolved with thick, scaled skin and had never seen such smooth, vulnerable flesh. The sight of Amy's bare skin had triggered something primal in their advanced minds. Over the following days, the twins requested private meetings with Amy. She tried to maintain professional distance but found herself drawn to their genuine curiosity about human anatomy and culture. They asked endless questions about human customs, relationships, and the significance of physical intimacy. Lyra was the more outspoken twin. She had silver markings along her temples that glowed when she was excited. Nova was quieter, but her eyes held depths that made Amy feel exposed even when fully clothed. Both stood nearly 7 feet tall with graceful movements that reminded Amy of dancers. The breakthrough came during a cultural exchange dinner. Amy had been assigned to help the twins understand human food customs. As she demonstrated how to use chopsticks, her hand brushed against Lyra's. The alien woman gasped, and her temple markings flared bright. That night, Nova appeared at Amy's quarters, alone. She explained in halting English that their species had been searching the galaxy for what they called the pure form. They believed it was a myth until they saw Amy. The smoothness of human skin, the way light played across it, the vulnerability it represented had awakened something in their ancient genetic memory. Amy learned that Zephyrians mated for life and always chose partners together. The twins had been searching for centuries for someone who could complete their bond. They had given up hope until that moment in her quarters. The political implications were staggering. If the Zephyrian Empire's most powerful ambassadors chose a human as their mate, it would change the balance of galactic politics forever. Captain Morgan was both thrilled and terrified by the possibilities, but Amy had her own concerns. She was just a communications officer from Texas who had joined the space program to see the stars. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined becoming the center of an interstellar love triangle that could reshape the galaxy. The twins began courting her in ways that defied human understanding. They brought her crystals that sang with her heartbeat. They created holographic gardens that bloomed only when she smiled. They learned human poetry and recited it in harmonious duets that made her cry. Amy found herself falling for both of them in different ways. Lyra's fierce protectiveness and quick wit balanced Nova's gentle wisdom and artistic soul. The 3 of them began spending every free moment together, exploring the ship's observation decks and sharing stories of their worlds. The other crew members watched in amazement as the fearsome Zephyrian warriors who had conquered half the galaxy followed Amy around like devoted pets. The twins would growl at anyone who spoke to her rudely, and their eyes never left her when she was in a room. 3 weeks after the incident, Amy stood in the captain's office facing an impossible choice. The Zephyrian High Council had sent an ultimatum. The twins must return home immediately to fulfill their duties to the Empire or face exile forever. But there was another option. They could claim Amy as their chosen mate under ancient Zephyrian law. This would make her a princess of the Empire with power beyond imagination. But it would also mean leaving humanity behind forever. Captain Morgan laid out the stakes. If Amy accepted, she would become the most powerful human in the galaxy, able to negotiate treaties that could secure Earth's future in the galactic community. If she refused, the twins would be forced to leave, and the diplomatic mission would fail. Amy looked out the viewport at the stars she had dreamed of exploring since childhood. Now, she had to choose between her species and her heart. The twins waited in the docking bay for her answer, their ship ready to depart. She found them standing together, their hands clasped as they watched the stars. Lyra turned first, her violet eyes. Reflecting the pain of potential separation, Nova stepped forward and took Amy's hands in her larger ones. The choice Amy made in that moment would echo through history books for generations to come. As she looked into the eyes of the two beings, who had seen her at her most vulnerable and found her beautiful beyond words, she realized that some bonds transcend species. Her answer would determine not just her own fate, but the future relationship between humanity and the stars. Amy smiled and spoke the words that would change everything.